throb never. I mean heart throb forever.
Yo, I've got to bring another dynamic to this Fat Joe situation, or the backlash of the Fat Joe situation. Because in my other post, I said that it was a lot bigger than what Fat Joe did, and I was thinking about like how all other ethnicities, for the most part, they always have something to say against American blacks or FBAs. Now, this is something that we all know, and it's saying that every member of the other ethnic groups, that they all think or behave like this, but there is too large of a number in the other ethnic groups that do think and behave like this. And this is why this is such a touchy topic and serious topic for American blacks to address it. But I was thinking about why do all these other ethnic groups have a thing against American blacks in regards to our ethnic identity? And why is there so much hatred and effort to place us, American blacks, at the bottom of society, at the bottom of any industries that we try to get in? Everybody else wants to place themselves above us. And like Lord Jamar said, subconsciously, they feel that they are above us. Why is there so much energy against the people who don't have their own country, but all of the other ethnic groups, they have their own country? What is this hate about? And all of the other ethnicities in the world say that American blacks or FBA, that we're lazy, uneducated. They look over or minimize our contributions to inventions and patents and things like that. They just try to ignore them. They, harp on this education thing. They harp on, fatherless homes and all sorts of things, especially the fatherless homes and out of wedlock births. But it's crazy that they do these things, because the very things that they talk about us about, their numbers in regards to those matters are actually higher than ours. They say we beg for handouts, that we want a handout in regards to wanting reparations. They minimize American black genocide, which has happened all over the Americas, specifically in the Latin countries, where they were brutal towards blacks in those countries with the dogs that they used to kill us. And I mentioned before how Argentina basically annihilated a whole black ethnic group there. They minimize the slavery. They minimize American black genocide. They minimize what we went through in segregation. They minimize Jim Crow. And they exclude us from adequate housing and jobs. They exclude us and leave us starving for community resources. All of them like to use the word nigger against us. And historically, they've always physically harmed us. And they work in secret against us. They try to take credit for everything we create. Like with this thing that's going on now with hip hop and the whole thing with Fat Joe. And they blame us for crimes that they are the ones actually responsible for, when they mix in amongst us, because they don't get, this is for the phenotypically black other ethnic groups. They mix in amongst us. It doesn't go to Nigerian crime or Jamaican crime or Caribbean crime or whatever. It goes to black, and that's targeted against our ethnic group. Then they blend in amongst us in our culture, but they hate us. They absorb our government positions and use legislation against us because we don't know that they're not us. They position themselves as better than us and are now angry that we have made a distinction about our ethnicity being different from them, when they're the ones who said we weren't part of them. They started it. And they worked together as a whole, confederate. All ethnic groups work together to dominate and subjugate us. And they claim that we are a people with no culture, that we are people who are basically, we basically ain't shit. But I figured something out. And not that it was a big figure out or a big revelation, but what's going on now is definitely, man, this is something that the Israelite brothers have talked about, and that American black Christians have talked about. But specifically the Israelite brothers, they talked about this, and I don't even know if they see it now, even though they are, they're thoroughly versed in this thing. But this is prophetic. And what this is a case of with all of these other ethnic groups, specifically the ones that we have been, pushing back against in regards to Fat Joe, all of these other ethnic groups, the fact that they are positioning themselves against us with this arrogance, with this pride, with this thing of trying to belittle and subjugate and dominate us, this is prophetic of the biblical Zechariah 12:7. Now, Zechariah 12:7 says this: The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. That's deep. In that day, this is verse 8, in that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and he that is feeble among them at that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God and the angel of the Lord before them. But that verse 7 said that, that God would, save the tents of Judah first, so that the other tribes and other nations won't magnify themselves against Judah. This is deep. This whole thing of magnifying themselves against Judah, with that these people, these other tribes, he'll have to position us for salvation first, so that these other nations don't exalt themselves over us in arrogance. That he would have to do that. It's in the context of, the Most High's protection and elevation of, quote unquote, Judah, to prevent any prideful attitudes from other groups. There is no other people that fit this prophecy but American blacks. There's no other people that fit this prophecy. This is an actual reminder that the Most High would have to do this to prevent Judah from being destroyed and marginalized by the other tribes and nations, as well as to maintain, American black unity and humility. But if these things weren't put into place, they would easily magnify themselves against us to destroy us. That like the other ethnicities or these other groups, or biblically these other tribes or nations, they have a negative behavior or ideology towards American blacks or Judah, that can only be explained as a historical jealousy and rivalry and spiritual pride against us. This is what they say. They say that. Actually, they won't come just flat out and say it, but this is how they feel without saying so. Man, because if the things that I just mentioned in here are not true, like I said, the comments are open to leave, response and comment as to why this is not true. If it's not true that American blacks are witnessing all of the other ethnic groups basically unifying against a group of people, an ethnic group of people who have no military and no country. If this isn't true, state how it's not true. And then state how American blacks have done anything to harm you and your country. When have we come to you and hurt you and your country? When did we come to your country and rape it for its resources? When did we come to your country and rape and molest your women and children? When did we come to your country and attack you and harm you with war dogs, with dogs and things of that nature? When did we come to your country and absorb your government positions and make you think that we were you while working the legislation to work against you? When did we come to your country and live in amongst you and act like we were you, but hold these negative ideologies against you? This is all other nations against American blacks. And so with me looking at it, I'm like, this is definitely prophetic. This is a prophetic thing that has happened, that whatever's going on, this thing with Fat Joe and these other ethnicities and the argument over hip hop and the argument over, things that have been created and contributed to American culture by American blacks. But everybody wants to say that we have done nothing. Everybody wants to say that we're not them, but yet we aren't who we are announcing and declaring who we are. They'll tell us, well, you're not African. Well, you come from here, but you ain't that. Like, once you think about this thing, for somebody to tell you that, well, you come from here, but then tell you that you're not them and then have a hatred towards you, explain to me how this is logical or humane. Not that we care. You see, because the thing with American blacks is when we see that somebody ain't rocking with us, we're like, okay, do your thing. Go and do your thing. Ain't no problem about it. We ain't really want to be a part of your shit anyway. That's how we'll roll with it. But it almost seems to be like a mental disconnect, like a mental impairment that people can't understand that what they are saying is retarded. And I'm not saying it as retarded in the sense of denigrating people who are medically retarded. That's not what I'm saying. Even though this would be medically retarded because they can't understand it. And the fact that you can't understand it means even more that we are a different ethnic group than you. Because maybe bloodline wise, it's just not in your bloodline to understand it. Maybe it's just something you can't understand. But because you can't understand it, that's all the more reason for us to definitely declare and make a distinction between our ethnic lineage and identity and the types of things that we've gone through, which makes us a very distinct and special ethnic group amongst all of the other nations. Not that we are more special than them, not that we are above them, but if something in the way of divine intervention does not happen to stop these other ethnic groups from trying to destroy us, they would be successful. So the Most High has to deliver Judah first. The Most High has to deliberately and literally elevate Judah first, because if not, and we're seeing in real time, if that is not done through pure raw facts that cannot be denied, the remembrance of our history that cannot be denied, and we got receipts, and you cannot disprove what we're talking about. You cannot disprove those things that have been documented in antiquity about us that definitely state who we are. If a spiritual movement or a spirit didn't come over American blacks to say, okay, now it's time to push back, every other ethnic group and nation of people would elevate and magnify themselves against us, as they are doing. Like, seriously, like I said in a couple other posts, I'm only left to conclude that this type of thing against us is a mental illness. And the fact that there is no shame about the unified efforts that they have against us, there's no shame. Like, they're coming out of people, coming out of American blacks like we are the people who colonized your countries. Like, we are the people who raped and pillaged your lands. Like, we're the people who are extracting all of your precious minerals and stuff and food, valuable food resources out of there and using them for ourselves. Y'all act like that's us that's doing that. Y'all act like we're the ones who have done these heinous things to you. Yet you have your own country where you don't even have to be around American blacks, because most of us don't get to travel like that. There's a reason for that. If we manage to stay above the things that are placed on us to keep us down here, if we manage to rise above that and get to the point of where we're able to travel, when we enter into your countries, y'all have even more stringent and racist policies and ideologies against us. Like, people who are the same complexion as us, y'all have no idea the mind fuck that is. Well, growing up in America, all you can think about is, man, if we could just get amongst our own people or amongst our own people that look like us, we wouldn't have to go through that. But lo and behold, you get around these people, whether they're a few shades lighter than you or whatever it is, or maybe they're just a whole other different ethnicity, and everybody has something against you. And they'll try to blame it and say that it's because you commit these crimes and stuff. Like, the crimes that y'all experiencing by phenotypically black people, those aren't American blacks. These are Caribbeans and Africans that are doing this in Latin countries and European countries and that. So American blacks don't get to travel like that. Not saying that there aren't some who went somewhere and done some bullshit, I'm pretty sure. But for the most part, that ain't us. Like, you cannot make this shit up, man. But when you look in them scriptures in that Bible, that particular one, Zechariah 12:7, there's only one group of people that fit that prophecy, that prophetic warning, that the Most High would have to elevate or awaken and energize Judah first, or else the other ethnic groups and the other tribes and nations would magnify themselves against and above Judah. That's what's going on with this situation with the Fat Joe thing, the Math Hoffa thing. Because for people who don't know, we'll just look at these people, and by all means, we should all be one people, but we didn't make that delineation. Y'all did. We would have never, we didn't know that Math Hoffa was Caribbean, and not that it should have mattered. Like, it shouldn't have mattered that he was Caribbean. They made that distinction. All we know is that we looking at people of color like, okay, they like us, or they from the Caribbean, but they still us. We didn't know that y'all were saying, nah, nigga, we not you. We didn't know that. We didn't know that, a lot of Africans the same way as, that some Africans the same way as some Caribbeans. We didn't know that y'all didn't view us as being African. We thought we were all the same. We didn't make we didn't initiate that motion for specific delineation. We didn't care about the language. We didn't care that if you spoke a Caribbean language, or if you spoke a Latino language, or if you spoke an African language, or whatever language. We didn't care that. We thought that if you were melanated and you were colonized, by people who were definitely opposite of us as far as phenotype and that thing go, we know what colonization and imperialism was about. And slavery and apartheid and all that was. We didn't know that y'all didn't see us as one family, but the Most High did. And when you go into this, you understand why the northern and the southern kingdom had to be split. Where Judah was in the south, I think with one other tribe, maybe Benjamin or something like that, and possibly Levi. But primarily Judah was in the south, and then the other tribes were in the north. It's due to this same thing, this same type of thing. And we weren't the ones who initiated this. Every time I listen to a podcast or a live stream from the people that I listen to, and they'll let, people of, immigrant descent, or, if they're current immigrants or whatever, or if they have family roots in Caribbean or Africa or whatever, or Latin countries, they can never fully quantify why it is that they have this disdain against American blacks. There's always something so surface level and so trivial that once you listen to what they say and then you process, you're like, man, that can't be it. That can't be why you hold this type of, negative stereotype and ideology against American blacks. That can't be true. Because every ethnicity has people that do those types of things that you're talking about. And then numerically, you would be a fool to say that 100% of American blacks behave that way. Every ethnic group has people that are lazy, that all the things that you say about American blacks, every ethnic group has that within their group. But then to try to flip it and say that American blacks are the main ones who behave this way, it's unreal. And I was, like I said, I was thinking about that scripture, like, magnify themselves against Judah. So he would have to elevate Judah first. And maybe it's the whole thing of, we know that Judah is the king tribe, or the leader appointed by God of all the tribes. Is that what the anger is about? even though the other tribes have kings within them as well. But because biblically the scripture says that Judah is the king tribe, which is the tribe that Christ came through, is this what the anger is about? That there was a favoritism towards Judah, an undeserved favoritism? That there's an undeserved position appointment by the Most High, and everyone's mad about it. I mean, I'm just asking, because you're not going to keep sitting here and saying that these frivolous things that you're talking about a people, a nation of people who are a militarily non-existent ethnic group. We don't have a military. We don't have political wealth. We don't have agricultural wealth. We don't have technological wealth. We don't have any type of wealth that would make us, well, we don't have a solidarity of wealth, if you understand what I'm saying. Like, American blacks don't have an American black currency, but Jamaica has a currency. Cuba has a currency. Spain has a currency. Mexico has a currency. You know, so on and so forth. Y'all get my point. So here's a people who have the least as far as world position and influence goes. Yet all of the other ethnic groups want to unify to make sure that they don't even have anything at all. Not even in the form of cultural rights, which this ethnic group has created. What is this about if it isn't Zechariah 12:7? Somebody will have to explain that to me. If it's not Zechariah 12:7, explain to me in the comments or whatever what it is. I would actually like to be doing live shows, but I'm not getting enough, traffic or views and stuff of that matter. You see what I'm saying? But if people get on there and say, yo, I'll tell you why it is. Fire up that live stream and I'll tell you exactly what it is. We could do that. But I know you're not going to be able to come with anything more than the simple things that have already been stated. Like all of the lies about us being uneducated. Like you have people who constantly say, well, what have American blacks contributed recently? Everything y'all talk about was in the past. Like, are you serious? And even if that was true, even if it was in the past, it's in the recent past of American history. And not even 80 years ago. But we're still contributing to American society and American culture. We're still inventing things and coming up with solutions to make the American lifestyle better as far as it goes. So I'm not understanding where all of these lies and this vitriol and, well, I wasn't understanding it until I, figured it out. Zechariah 12:7. That these ethnic groups and these other nations want to magnify or exalt themselves against American blacks. Hands down. If I'm wrong, hit them comments and with some solid facts and, it's what I've come up with. Zechariah 12:7. I'm out.
Heart throb never. Heart throb forever.